Hi, I'm going to do a quick video just to go over the electrical that I did on the F150 Raptor. Probably relevant for F150s in general, Raptors obviously, Gen 2, probably can extend a lot of it to a Gen 1 as well. And I'll just do a quick rundown of the electrical with the auxiliary battery and just the way I handled it for camping and off-road use. So probably the key here, I mean the Raptor comes with a big battery, but I really did not want to burn it down by mistake when I was camping, because I'll be, off grid for like a week or 2 weeks and really don't want some accessory pulling that down. So ran number 6 cable to the back. I'll show that. So that goes down, and I just ran it along the side of the frame through this loom on the outside of the frame, and it goes up in there. So I've just got it zip tied. I really wanted to be able to access it and troubleshoot it and fix it in the field, and so it may have been more elegant to have it run through the frame, but you got to come out of the frame at some point anyway. So it's got the properly fused. While I'm here, so this is for my lights, things like I put a 5th rock light up here just so that I'd have some light under the hood. I've got my wiring for the Baja Designs Squadron, of course the mandatory stubby antenna, and on this side is the antenna for the VHF. You can tell I'm old. VHF antenna, the other Squadron. I didn't go with the Squadron Pro. In BC, on the type of roads that I'm driving on, you're just not hitting those high speeds. And if you're not overdriving your lights, then just the regular ones were fine. They punch out a little bit further. They're the yellow ones. Clearly that's not going to blow off in the wind. Yeah, so I went with yellow just because I'm contending with a lot of fog and rain and slushy snow. So I've been really happy with these lights. I went with a cheap bracket. I know there's an expensive bracket that's well rated. This, I don't know if you can tell. I mean, I'm not, taking it easy, but that's going nowhere. I put a little piece of tape at my roof line and then the top of my rooftop tent. So just as a little marker there. So then that comes around to the back here. So I did in the other video, I talked about the bed rug and just putting the extra clips on there for managing all the gear. So this looks like a mess. So starting with this, the reason I've got this tail here is that I know it's pretty goofy looking. I got to figure out a better way to do this, but is that. So I've got a few layers of stuff. I've got the bag, and then I've got this with a bit of tape on it. Basically, I don't want anything to short out because that's hot. That's number 6 cable, not for jump starting, but for my compressor and also for solar. So I can go solar into my auxiliary battery, which is just a Costco AGM right now. I would look at the lithium, but just not being able to charge them in the cold weather, that's a bit of a concern for me. So this I can run out the back. I can connect my solar to it. I don't have to open the hood. Usually I'm in the back anyway, so then I can run my compressor off of that. So I've got this disconnect, so I can run, this is the line that goes into my cab. I can run direct from my main battery into that and bypass this whole mess if I just want to run my auxiliary gear off of my main battery just like you would normally. So that's what that is about. I've got, that's my breaker to the rear seat fuse, fuse panel. The Raptor 1225 has an extra line that you can run a solar priority on, but I looked at that. It's just an added layer of complication, and just running solar straight into my battery is just working out great for me. One of the reasons I use the Minn Kota trolling battery case, well, one is because I had a couple of them laying around. The other is their fuse, so that, you know, if you are running things like your cooler off of here, that's fused, and it's actually a breaker. What is it, 10 amp breaker, and then a 60 amp breaker for the other ones. So that actually worked out perfectly for me. And it's pretty water resistant in there, and then the battery itself is water and vibration proof, and it doesn't care if it's on its side like that. One of the reasons I left these wires exposed, there's like the trigger on there to sense when your main battery is off, or your ignition is off. And then what it does is it knows not to suck some of the juice from the main battery, and so it isolates it, and then you're just using the auxiliary. And same thing, when you're going, your main battery might go on a power saving mode, and the Raptor 1225D will sense that. It knows, because of that trigger, it knows that you're driving, and it won't, it will push as much voltage as you need into this battery, because its demands might be different than the main battery. So it's smarter than I am. I did do a video on things like the Retrax cover and that kind of thing. That's one of the hokey drains for that cover. So that's about it here. So then as we head into the back seat, what we've got here is the wires come in actually in behind this seat here. There's a air breather panel there that lined up pretty much perfectly, and then I ran, I think it was 12 gauge into this low voltage disconnect, which I can override if I want. And then I've got a fuse for my VHF radio, my dash cam, my console outlet, and then these outlets. And then I've got a couple of spares there if I want. So those outlets there are for the cooler, if I run the cooler inside. If not, The cooler's usually in the back on trips, and then I just plug it straight into that Minn Kota trolling battery box. So then under here, I went really sort of ghetto, and I just ran the wire flat under the thing here because I needed to get into this console for my radio and for my sockets, for my outlets. And I could have run, you know, through here, but then I'd still have some exposed wire that would be coming across anyway. And one of the things that I really wanted to do was just make it field serviceable, and so I could troubleshoot it and fix it in the field. And so that's what I chose to do. Very inelegant, but it gets the job done, and you really don't feel it there. So that's that. Speaking of field serviceability, this comes out, all it is a piece of wood. I know Built-Right makes a bracket that you could put a radio, and you could put all this stuff on that bracket. The Built-Right stuff is great. So this is kind of the main junction of what goes into my cab, what goes into the bed, and I did a frame ground just because I've got an aluminum bed, and so I just went straight to the frame for the ground. I kept a lot of these wires separate, the way that I ran them, again, just to aid troubleshooting. So I could have, you know, run them all together, but then I've been out there when it's all muddy and raining and everything, and you're trying to find something, and it's all grouped together. So it looks kind of goofy, but it works for me. So I'm not sure you can see, but I came up from that junction, and then I'm running through the frame. There's this sort of hollow cross member. So I ran loom on there and wrapped the wire, and then put loom on it, and then came around to the other side. And that was to try to get up to these. So I ran up here, so that's loom, and then I'm through here, and then I'm sneaking it around the back to these cheap side floodlights. And I was having a hard time finding a route to come over to this side. So that's where that frame member, that's that cross member, that I use that little tunnel, and then that kind of comes up to that, up through here, again in here, and then up around the back here. So it's all out of the way. It's not going to get snagged on branches or anything like that. And that's how I solved that one. If I had run that cross wire up and around things, I would have been interfering with the exhaust. I just didn't want to get that wire hot, so I just avoided that by going through that cross member. Okay, so I did talk about the console, and so what I'm doing here in the console is I just ran up inside there, and that's where my VHF radio is, and those are the two auxiliary outlets, and then Raptor comes with a an outlet that's attached to my main battery, but then that one goes off in 15 minutes after I park. And you might be wondering what this is, but this isn't on right now because I don't have my cooler in, but it's a wireless sender. This is connected to the cooler wirelessly, and then it gives me what the voltage is, which is really handy on my auxiliary battery, and then it also says what the temperature is on the cooler. So I've just got that on there, and then I've got my VHF, which also, when you turn it on, it tells you what your voltage is on that circuit, which happens to be right now my auxiliary circuit. So I kept it in here just so it was out of sight, out of mind, and then I just have my tray and all my normal junk in there. Up front here, I did the built-right panel. That's this metal bracket here, and then I have my RAM mounts, so that's for cell phone. I've got one for my satellite messenger, and sometimes I put the GoPro on there. Yeah, so that's that. But while I was in there, I ran a line, and then that way it reduces the power cables. So that isn't connected to my system. That's in here, and then that's connected to my audio, and that one's just a pure power outlet. So this is the 400 watt inverter that just comes with the truck, and then the thing, and it's off right now just because the truck's been off for more than 15 minutes. And then here, I ran a separate clean line to my main battery instead of auxiliary with those two outlets. And I can do a couple things with that. One is I can charge cell phones and things like that off my main battery if I wanted to, instead of the auxiliary. But mostly it is to connect a small solar panel either to the inside, or I can just run it outside and attach it to the window or the inside of the window. And then that just kind of keeps up with the sort of trickle charging of the main battery when I'm camping for an extended period of time. And then I've got a 120 watt charging panel, little fold up. It's not the suitcase one, not the big clunky one, but they're those semi-flexible panels, and that's just worked great for keeping up the auxiliary battery. On the topic of electrical, I did run the power to my dash cam, not just power for while the truck is running, but then extra power to it from my auxiliary battery. And then that way, when I'm parked, it's not pulling down my main battery to monitor. So those are my upfitters. I've got my drive. So those are the squadrons. That's my trigger for the dash cam and for the redarc charger, and that's always on. And then I have my left flood, right flood, rock lights, and rear backup. So I'll just show you those quickly. So that's just my cheap flood. I shouldn't have looked right at that. It's they're pretty low power. I didn't really know what I wanted in terms of my side floodlights for camping. So I just put those cheapos on there, and they're relatively low power, and I need to make some decisions of whether I want like a more skookum sort of driving combo, or not spotlight, but a fog light or something like that. So that's a work in progress. I think they were like 50 bucks Canadian for the two. So it's just, you're not exactly committing to much there. And I can just use the circuit, that's fine, and I can just pop some different lights on there once I make my mind up of how powerful I want them to be. I'm really happy with the S1 reverse. You can never tell with, I'll post some pictures of what these look like for backing up. They're powerful, but they're not so powerful, they're ridiculous. And then I looked at that again because I'm not too smart. That's where I put those rock lights. Again, I was pretty reluctant to put rock lights on, and then there's the one, that's the fifth one that is for the under the hood. Yeah, I was pretty reluctant to put rock lights on because they're kind of a, well, they've got a stigma, but you know, really for me, they're just functional, and it's not like I'm cruising the boulevard with my rock lights on. I was already doing all this electrical, so it wasn't really that much of a big deal to run some thin wire out to those 4 rock lights and rivet them in place to some plastic or wherever I ended up putting them. So that was about that. And I think in a nutshell, that is the electrical. So I mean, I had to learn how to relearn, I guess, learn properly how to do the, you know, the right connectors and not use the vampire connectors and, you know, those clips and those kinds of things, and use the right gauge wire and the right fuses and just do everything properly. So I took my time with it, and I made lots of notes and everything, and I just, yeah, broke the problem down. And then the loom tape, that is like the best stuff ever. And one of the things that I did with these upfitter switches and then the pass-through wires was I just labeled the crap out of everything. That labeler got a lot of use, and it's waterproof. And sort of scratch proof those labels. And so I've got some extra pass-through wires that I need to square away that I'm not using, because some of them, some of the upfitter wires I just wired directly, and then they go to the various lights and that kind of thing. So that's it. We'll see how this comes out. I didn't put any fog lights up front. You know, the higher you can put your driving lights, the better, just because they give you more of an angle down into the puddles and the whoops and ruts. They're not necessarily a bad thing. I just, for what I need in terms of lighting, given that I'm not overdriving my lights because I'm not doing high speed stuff at night, yeah, these driving combos have just been great. I might do a different bracket for this antenna, the VHF antenna, but for now it's doing the job. It's got a little bit of give to it. This has some give to it, and yeah, so that's, you know, solid. That's not going anywhere. So I hope you found this helpful. If you have any questions, just feel free. Just send them to me, and either in the comments or just a direct message, and I'm happy to help. I put a lot of thought into it. I took like 5 pages of notes in terms of, you know, wiring gauges and what size fuses and everything, and you know, where to pick up power. Originally I did it with add-a-fuse. I had 3 add-a-fuses, I think, in my passenger footwell there that I was using for either ignition power or keyed power, or constant on, and I just wasn't happy with them. They use, like, I can't remember if it's the micro fuse. It's sort of a new fuse size, and there isn't a lot of room to work in there. Just wasn't happy with it. So that's so I just ran everything to that auxiliary battery through the fuse panel, and then to what I needed to run it to. So I'm happy with that. That's it. Okay, thanks. Talk to you later. Bye.